Hey y'all, Mary Kennedy here from Algebra Student, and I am going to help you today with mean absolute deviation. It's called MAD for short because, who wants to say that every time? So that's sort of how most teachers write it. The mean absolute deviation is kind of tedious. It's got some little parts to it, but I'm going to hopefully show you how to make it more simple. This is a very typical math problem for mean absolute deviation. So go ahead and hit subscribe because I'm going to teach you how to do algebra so that you can understand it and move on with your life. That's what you want to do. You want to get through this and then go do some fun stuff. So that's my goal here. All right. So golf tournament, you got top 5 men's scores and women's scores. And, in golf, the goal is not to have the highest scores, the goal is to have the lowest score. So, like this person who scored 65 did a lot better than the person who scored 72, and this person who scored 68 did better than the person that scored 76. So it's kind of the opposite. It's not like football where you want the highest score or whatever to win. All right, so to do the MAD, we're going to use something different on the computer, the calculator. And this is one of those reasons this multi-view 30XS, the one from TI, is so useful. I don't work for them or anything, but I just think it's a really good calculator. So here we go. So you're going to hit the data button, which is different. You may not have used it in the past, but you're going to hit data and you're just going to type in the scores, in this case for the men's section. So 65 and hit enter. And you'll see that it now says list 1 and it's ready for you to put in the second score. And so you hit 67 and hit enter and keep going. So 71, hit enter, 72, enter, and then 72 again. And you do list it twice. And so if there's 5 scores, it shows you here there's 5 scores. And over here, you know that you've put in 5 scores because it says list 1, it's ready for you to put in the 6th term. So that's kind of nice that it kind of tells you that. So now you're going to do this order of, you're going to hit second, and then you're going to hit data, not date, and then you're going to hit enter 4 times. So not times 4, but you're going to, second data, enter. Second data, and you see this one variable stats. That's what you want. You hit enter. You're in list 1. You hit enter. Keep going. Hit enter. Calculate. Hit enter. All right. Now, this is what you were looking for. So that, just by the way, that n equals 5 just confirms again that you did put in 5 scores. So that helps you to know you haven't skipped one. It doesn't mean you typed them in correctly, but at least it's just it's a good thing to glance at and make sure, because nothing will mess you up faster than leaving out one of the pieces of data, right? So the thing you want to pay attention to is the second one, the X bar, it's called. So X bar, X with a bar over it, that's the mean. And the X bar is 69.4. You're not going to round it. You're just going to leave it at whatever it says there. That's what you're going to write out. Okay. So the mean is 69.4. So now the next big step with finding the MAD is that you have to subtract the mean from all the little pieces of data, but they have to be positive numbers. So there's lots of ways that you can think about this, because there's not a button on that calculator that'll do absolute value for you. You just have to know in your brain that the answers you're about to get have to be positive, and if they're negative, you write them as positive. It's like a weird time in math when you actually can just leave off the negative sign. Okay, so here's what I tend to do. And this always gives me a positive number. I think, okay, 69.4, is that bigger or smaller than 65? It's bigger. So I want to start with 69.4 and subtract 65. And that's going to give me a positive number. It's bigger, 69.4 is bigger than 67. So I'm going to do 69.4 minus 67. Oh, but it's less than 71 and 72. So in that case, I'm going to do 71 minus that, 72 minus that, and then 72 minus that again. Okay, so now we're ready to go to a calculator. You're going to hit second mode, and it just takes you back to the normal screen that just has a cursor. So second mode does that. All right. So now we're just going to see what these are. And if you can subtract in your head, then that is fantastic. But Miss Kennedy can't. Math teachers, I don't know if other math teachers are like me, but subtracting in my head is one of those things I have to work at. All right. So when I subtract here, I get 2.4. And then I'm going to do 71 minus 69.4. And I get 1.6. And then 72 minus 69.4, which is just one more than the previous. So that'll be 2.6. All right. And those are the same since it's the same things that I'm doing there. All right. So now let's see if I can highlight this the way that I want to. These are the numbers that I'm interested in now. At this point, I'm done with 69.4. I'm done with all the original numbers. I'm not worried about them at all. All that I'm concerned with is these yellow numbers now. So now I go back to the data list. And it's got the old numbers there. It's got the ones that I don't need. So what you do is you hit data again and you see clear formula. And that's what you want. So you hit enter. Okay. So it is data, enter. That's how you clear it out, is to hit those three buttons. And so now I've got a nice clear table. I'm ready to go again. So, and I shouldn't say table. We're not on table. We're on the data list. Now I just want to type in the new numbers. So 4.4, enter, 2.4, enter, 1.6, enter, 2.6, enter, and then 2.6 again and hit enter. And now when I hit enter, it's ready for the sixth term. I know I only had 5, so that should be a good sign that I'm on track. Okay. So now I'm going to do what I did earlier. I'm going to hit second data and hit enter 4 times. And it gets me back to this list of stats that it has found for us. So I need the X bar again. And this time the X bar is actually the mean absolute deviation, which is 2.72. Okay. So we're not done, but we've done the MAD for the men's scores. 2.72 doesn't have a whole lot of meaning until we compare it to somebody else's MAD, mean absolute deviation. So now that we've done all that, I'm going to change colors and we're just going to change gears, but we're going to do exactly the same thing. We just do it with the women's scores this time. And then once we have 2 numbers, then we can, kind of compare them. And I keep looking down here at my picture. I should be looking at right here. I'm sorry. I'm new to this. I got to learn how to do it right. Okay. So I want to go here. I was at the data list. I should have stayed where I was. Let me get back to where you were. Oops. I hit enter too many times. Okay. Second data, enter. Okay. All right. So this is where you were. And so now I need to type in the new women's information. So now I'm going to hit data, enter again. Remember data and enter. And so now I have a clean list there ready for me to type in the new scores. So 68, not 700. This delete button is a lifesaver. So hit the delete if you mess up like I did. 70, and then 72, 74, 76, 74, 76. Okay. Second data, enter. All right. So now we have the women's X bar, or the women's mean, is 72. So their average is higher than the men's. We can see that here. For this particular tournament, that was true. All right, so we're going to do what we did here, and we're going to subtract 72 with each piece of data, and we just need to make sure we keep getting positive numbers. So I'm going to think, okay, well, these two are less than 72, so I'm going to do 72 minus 68 and 72 minus 70, but here, well, it's the same there. I know 72 minus 72 is 0, and here, these numbers are bigger. All right, and I'm going to show you a little trick with that if you stay to the end. Or just a little helpful hint, I guess is a better way to say it. All right, so 72 minus 68. We'll trust that I can do this. I don't know. This is 2 and this is 4. All right, so if you didn't trust yourself, like I'm not super confident about myself, I hit second mode to get back to a clear screen. And then I do 72 minus 68 and so on, right? You don't need me to show you that. Okay, so now I'm ready. I have these new scores, which is the new little pieces of data, not scores, but the pieces of data that I want to put in. So I'm going to go to data, and it's got the old ones. So data, enter. I'm going to do this. Hit data again. It gives me the clear screen, and I hit enter to do that. And I'm ready to type in these new scores. So 4, 2, 0, 2, and 4. If you leave out 0, you're going to get the wrong answer. It's going to mess you up. So that shows me that I've put in 5 because it's ready to put in the 6th term or piece of data. So I hit second, data, and enter 4 times. And now I've got my new X bar. X bar is 2.4. That is the MAD for the women's scores is 2.4. Okay, so it says compare the spread of the data. Now, no teacher that I know is looking for a paragraph from you. It's not like you're going to have to write a book about this. You're going to write something pretty basic. And you may have to list, in a sentence. Sometimes they might want you to write that out. The men's scores have a MAD or a mean absolute deviation of 2.72, and then women's scores have a mean absolute deviation of 2.4. But if you're just comparing the spread of the data, then most likely you can say the mean absolute deviation for the women's scores is lower or smaller? Smaller. Therefore, their scores are more consistent. Now, that is the key. A smaller mean absolute deviation just means the scores are more consistent across all of them across the board, as they say. So you're not really making a judgment. You're not having to elaborate. You're just going to say whoever had the MAD that was smaller, that's the group whose scores or whatever's were more consistent with each other. Like the women were more likely to score close to a 72 than the men were likely to score close to a 69.4 statistically. So keep it simple. Whatever statement that your teacher has written on like notes and examples, that's the statement you're going to use. And it's usually really like straightforward. Like don't do all this tedious work and then not be sure what to write at the end. I don't want that for you at all. So this is what I, had my students to write, something to this effect. Just keeping it very simple. Okay. So I said, if you stayed to the end, thanks for staying to the end, that I would show you just one thing here, because lots of times the issue is like, here you're getting negatives and it kind of throws you off or something. Let's see if I can manage to erase kind of what we did here and see if I can explain that a little differently. Okay, so if the mean's 72 and you're just like, okay, I just want to do minus 72 every time, that is fine. You can absolutely do it that way. So if that's easier for you to do it that way, then do that. Okay, so let's see what happens when we do that. So I'm going to go second mode to clear and go back to just the blank screen. And I'm going to do 68 minus 72. And remember that the answer that we got earlier was 4. And that's what was correct, and that's what we should have. But this says -4. And so we have to remember the mean absolute deviation. If your teacher showed you the formula, which I'm not even going to put up here because it's crazy, and you just need to know how to do it. And that's what you're here for. So that's what I'm going to show you. But part of the formula is that when you subtract that, you take the absolute value of it. So that was why I set it up so that I'm pointing to the screen like you can see that. I set it up here so that you would automatically get positives because you've got to use positives to get your mean absolute deviation. Here, just know that if you set it up this way, that's fine as long as you in your brain think, okay, when I get -4 over here, I have to write it as the absolute value, which is 4. Okay. So you're going to use 4, in other words. 70 minus 72 is -2, but you have to use the absolute value, which is +2. 72 minus 72 is 0. This is 2, and this is 4. If it's, that looks like a negative. If it's already positive, the absolute value is still positive. Like it doesn't change. So, that can be something that throws people off, and I don't want that to be the case for you. These numbers have to be the positive version of whatever you get when you subtract. So if you get a negative, make sure you use the positive to find your MAD, your mean absolute deviation. If you get a positive, leave it positive because that's what you have to use to find your mean absolute deviation. I hope that's helpful. If you need to see more mean absolute deviation problems, let me know. Again, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at myself like I'm all self-centered, and I don't mean to do that. All right. Y'all have a great day.